All right. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all feeling fine and you're quite ready to take part in today's discussion of two orientations of to syllabus design, mainly product oriented versus product oriented. Okay. Uh, you see, we have so far clarified the distinction between curriculum and syllabus. We talked about the role of the teacher in syllabus design. We also talked about the point of departure or the basic orientations in syllabus design in our last session. Today, we want to see what differences there are between product oriented and process oriented syllabus design. And so, what different types of syllabuses can be categorized under each of these general categories. So, before we start the discussion of the product oriented and process oriented syllabuses, first of all, we need to clarify the distinction between two underpinning concepts called synthetic versus analytic approaches to language teaching. Let's see what you know about the synthetic approaches to syllabus, to language teaching or synthetic language strategy. Yeah, Haydar, I understand, quite understand your case. Don't worry. It's good that you have finally joined the class. Okay, Mona, go ahead, please.
Yes, doctor. There are many differences between analytic and synthetic syllabuses. Synthetic syllabuses emphasis on language. Different parts of language are taught separately and step by step, so that acquisition is a process of gradual accumulation of words until the whole structure of language has been built up. While analytic syllabuses, on the other hand, they are emphasis on different of language, which may include structures of varying degrees of difficulty.
Thank you so much indeed, Mona. Yes, starting with the synthetic approaches to language teaching, they believe that language can be broken down into some separate components, pieces, bits of the language, and these separate components of the language can be taught separately in a step by step manner, focusing on one item at a time. These are the key features of the synthetic approach that you need to remember. Breaking language into some parts, teaching each of these parts separately in a step by step manner, and focusing on one item at a time until mastery over the whole structure, through accumulation of knowledge through these separate parts and constituents of the language. Eventually, they believe that the whole will be formed and students will be able to use this knowledge to express themselves and communicate with others. Yes, these are the features of the synthetic approaches to language teaching. And as your friend mentioned, analytic approaches, on the other hand, look at language and has a more holistic view towards the language phenomenon, and believe that instead of breaking the language into parts, we need to present the learners with chunks of the language or wholes of the language to process and to find out exactly how it works. So this is the main distinction between analytic and synthetic approaches to language teaching. You see, they are important because to a great extent, these approaches to teaching or strategies to teaching have influenced some syllabuses of the time that were designed to teach the language. Mostly, people associate synthetic approaches with product-oriented syllabus types, and they associate analytic approaches with the more process-oriented syllabus types. But we cannot say that a synthetic approach equates with a product-oriented syllabus, because a syllabus cannot be, even how, no matter how product oriented in nature, a syllabus can never be purely synthetic or purely analytic in nature. And there are some degrees of being synthetic, more or less synthetic, and more or less analytic in different types of syllabuses that have emerged throughout the history of language teaching. So, this is an important point to remember. Now let's get to the distinction between product-oriented and process-oriented syllabuses. Starting with the product-oriented syllabuses first, I want you to tell me what features have been described or explained by David Noonan in this book that best represent, best describe product-oriented syllabuses. What are the main or key features of these types of syllabuses, or this orientation to syllabus design?
Yes, doctor. Can I add something, doctor?
Sure, please go.
Yes, doctor. Product syllabuses focuses on the knowledge and skills which learners should gain as a result of instruction, whereas process syllabuses focus on the learning experiences themselves.
Absolutely correct. Very good. So, product oriented, as the name speaks for itself, focuses on the outcome or the end result of instruction, which is usually the skills in the form of the skills and knowledge that we want our learners to take away from the instruction, from the course. Usually, these skills and the type of knowledge we expect our students to master and achieve as a result of instruction are closely related to the goals and objectives of the course. So we can say that a product-oriented syllabus focuses mainly on making sure that the goals and objectives of a course are achieved and the students are obtaining the skills and knowledge they need to have to show mastery over the content of the course. That is exactly the core of the product-oriented syllabus types. Whereas in the process-oriented syllabuses, we see that the focus is mostly on the process, or how the experiences that learners go through to discover, to learn, to find out how languages work in general around them, and what functions they serve in our lives. So they are basically different in a way, in their approach, as they don't that much pay attention to the end result of the instruction. Rather than looking at or having their eyes fixed on the end result, they want to see what happens in the way throughout the learning process. And that is the main distinction. Excellent, very good. So, product oriented syllabuses have some features of this synthetic approaches. How? Because they focus on, as you mentioned, skills and knowledge that students need to master for a particular course. And at the end of the day, they need to show mastery of those skills and knowledge. So, in what way product oriented is synthetic in its approach? Can you guess? No ideas? So you know the definition of the product oriented now. You know, you're familiar with the features of the synthetic approach to language teaching. Now I want you to find some similarities between the synthetic approaches and the product-oriented syllabus types. In what ways product-oriented syllabuses,
Yes, doctor.
yes, reflect the features of synthetic approach? Yes, please, Mona.
Yes, doctor. Product-oriented syllabuses also, we can say synthetic, the similarity between synthetic and the product, or we can consider synthetic syllabuses are product-oriented syllabuses, that is, which is specified as discrete lists of grammatical items, and in which the classroom focus is on the teaching of these items as separate and discrete.
Excellent. That's right, Mona. That's absolutely right. But it's not just limited to the grammatical items. Anything that is selected, any part of the language, it could be grammar, it could be lexical items, it could be the phonological aspects, it could be any part of the language, it could be the skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. When you separate all these elements of the language and teach them separately, you teach teaching, you teach reading separately from writing, you decide to have a course that focuses only on speaking without thinking about listening or other skills, then in all these ways, they are being synthetic that because they are separating the language elements and they are trying to teach them separately from other elements. And so definitely they would try to take this a step-by-step manner in teaching and presenting the elements separated. And what is the main concern of the syllabus designer in all these cases is they want to see what students take away with them from the course at the end of the day, at the end of the term, the end result of the instruction. So in that sense, a product-oriented syllabus is synthetic in its approach, right? Okay, now under the product-oriented syllabus, some subcategories are introduced. In this book, we only see two types of product-oriented syllabuses, mainly grammatical and functional notional syllabus. But I don't know whether you know any other syllabus types which are product-oriented in nature and are not listed here, or the name does not appear in the book. Can you mention some of other types of product-oriented syllabuses that were introduced into the field of language teaching and are not mentioned in this book? Are you familiar with any other product-oriented syllabuses? Can you mention some of them?
Yes. Yes, Dr. As we have studied with Dr. Hassan Talib in the previous semester, situational syllabuses, lexical syllabuses, also under product-oriented syllabuses.
Excellent. That's right. Absolutely right. Very good. Exactly. Situational syllabus as well as lexical syllabus. In fact, lexical syllabus coexisted with grammatical syllabus. They occurred at the same time, simultaneously. They were introduced almost at the same time. It means that, first of all, scholars started with grammatical syllabus types, believing that grammar is an important aspect of the language learning process learners need to master. But later on, some scholars like Anderson mentioned that grammar is important, but more important than grammar is vocabulary. He said that we all know that without grammar, little is understood. It means that if your learners don't have good grammatical knowledge of the language, at least they can communicate their ideas. Without correct grammar, they can communicate their ideas. They can express themselves. They can make themselves understood. A little bit of what they say is understood, even not perfectly. But he said that without lexical knowledge, without vocabulary, nothing is understood. It means that if your learners don't have any vocabulary in the new language, how could they express themselves even with faulty grammar? So it showed how important vocabulary was, and because of that, lexical syllabuses formed almost at the same time that we see the grammatical syllabuses uh, occur. They coexisted, as I said before. So, lexical syllabus, in which lists of vocabulary items are prepared, and students are supposed to master or memorize all these lists of vocabulary items. And so, mastery over the lexical item was the intention, and the purpose of the course is another example of the syllabus, which is product oriented in nature. And so is the situational syllabus. I will explain why after we have explained the features of grammatical syllabus and the functional notional syllabus. So let's start with the grammatical syllabus. What is a grammatical syllabus? And why is it called a product-oriented syllabus?
Yes, picture.
Yes, sure, Zaina.
Grammatical syllabus, one in which syllabus index is selected and graded according to grammatical notion of simplicity and complexity.
Very good.
The most repeated grammatical syllables introduce one item at a time and requires mastery of that item before moving on the other next to the next one. So it is
very
involves mastering one item at a time.
Good. Thank you very much indeed for that. So in this sense, as you mentioned, one grammatical item is presented at a time before moving on to the next, shows or reflects the features of a synthetic approach to syllabus design, as we have discussed earlier, that they believe that it needs to move in a step-by-step manner, and we need to focus our attention on making sure that the grammatical items selected and graded according to the grammatical notions of simplicity and complexity are perfectly mastered. If not, they won't move on to the next item. So this is the main feature of the grammatical syllabus. And we all know that, in fact, there is an assumption behind the grammatical syllabuses. And the assumption is that language consists of some finite set of rules which can be combined in various ways to make meaning. So that is why these finite set of rules are supposed to be selected and taught to the learners, so that with their knowledge of these finite number of rules, they can make an infinite number of sentences and express their meaning through various ways. All right, so this was the most important feature of the grammatical syllabus, as you mentioned, but there were some problems with the grammatical syllabuses of the time when they were first introduced into language teaching. What were the disadvantages or the main criticism leveled against grammar? Can you say? First, let's start with the problems with the grammatical syllabus. What was the main difficulty, or what were the main difficulties that people encountered when they were designing their grammatical syllabus types.
You are now unmuted.
Yes, sure. Hey there, Javad. Go ahead. You mean that focusing only on one discrete item, yes, was very difficult. That's right. Yes, that's right. That is called form function junction. We are going to talk about it later on as one of the major criticism which was made of grammatical syllabuses. Yes, but the difficulties that syllabus designers went through when they wanted to design grammatical syllabus definitely has something to do with the choice of the grammatical items, right? With selecting grammatical items. Their main concern was deciding which grammatical item was simpler than the other, and so
you are
designing these grammatical chains, as it was mentioned in the book, so that that's right. That's absolutely right. Experience has shown you this, and other people have also experienced this, saying that yes,
you are now
designing the grammatical items in that come in a row, designing grammatical chains that are related to one another is very difficult.
Yes,
yes,
yes, yes. We know the principal purpose of language teaching is to help learners to use the language and able them to use it in genuine communicative outside the classroom. But in grammatical syllabus, the focus is on the one aspect, on the grammar forms. So it is not benefit for the learners.
Excellent. They had a simplistic attitude towards the nature of language. They equated language learning with learning the grammatical structures of the language. While for real communication, learners need more than simply grammar. That's absolutely right. Thank you, Ebtesam. Great. And Ofran says they did not reveal the true nature of language. Yes, that's why I say they had the simplistic attitude towards language, because they have just focused on one part of the language, which is grammar. They have ignored the other important parts that are equally important or even more important than that itself. And yes, grammatical grading interferes with language acquisition, which is a more global phenomenon than a linear process. Sure, this is another major difficulty for people who have tried their hands in designing a grammatical syllabus. Grading the grammatical items is very difficult to do, and especially it doesn't have any logical explanation, because language learning and language acquisition as a global or a holistic approach is much more complicated than as is represented by the grammatical syllabus to be a linear process. Yes, thank you, Gofran. Meaning of words is taught in isolation within a particular grammatical form. That's correct. And the transition from lesson to lesson is intended to enable material in one lesson. That's exactly this transition. They have emphasized on, moving in a step-by-step manner and linking all grammar to one another. Recite, go, return, force, making sure that students still remember and have retained the previous grammatical item. All this is a tedious and a very laborious task to undertake. And yes, Ofran, this is the main criticism made of the grammatical syllabuses. This is called form-function disjunction. There is no one-to-one relationship between form and function. So can you explain this form-function disjunction by providing some examples? And thank you, Haydar, for saying the main advantage of the structural grammatical syllabus are the following. The structures and vocabulary are the two most important elements of the language. Without good command of these sectors, no one can conceive of performing in all language successfully. That was exactly the reason why lexical and grammatical syllabuses were formed. They took shape in the first place, but they have ignored that these are not the only important elements of the language that play a great role in using the language in communication. There are lots of extra linguistic knowledge and skills needed to be able to put your knowledge into correct use. This is important, which was ignored by the grammatical. Back to what Ghofran mentioned about form-function disjunction. Let's see if you can show this form-function disjunction. Through some examples, please. Go ahead, please. If you want to explain this form-function disjunction or give us some examples, please do so. You see, Ghofran, you have mentioned here yourself that there is no one-to-one relationship between form and function. What does it mean? Can you explain it?
Yeah, sorry.
Mona, go on, please.
Syllabus design have been one.
I guess there's some bad internet connection because your voice is broken and
Yes.
glitched. Unfortunately, I cannot hear you properly.
Yes, doctor.
All right.
Yes, doctor. Can I add a comment?
Yes, sure.
Yes, doctor. There is no predetermined relationship between form and function. Not only can a single form release more than one function, but a single function can be written by more than one form.
That is absolutely correct, Zainab. Thank you so much. This is exactly what is meant by form-function disjunction. That you see, there's one form of the language that you use, you include in your syllabus. Let's say you say, it is hot in here. It is very cold in here. This is the sentence you use. So for this sentence, depending on the context, depending on the intention of the speaker, there are several different functions or purposes that can be realized simply through the form and the contextual information alongside this sentence. If I am in a classroom and I say this, I might mean to ask my students for help so that some of the students will get the doors open or the windows open so that fresh air comes in, rushes in, and the room is in here. This can be taken as a request, an indirect request for opening the windows and the doors to let the fresh air in. Or it might only simply act as a statement saying that it's very hot. You're reporting the reporting some information about today's weather. So it does not serve a purpose as to request someone to do something for you. It's just a statement you are expressing. You are giving information about the conditions of the weather condition that day. So you see, this is one form serving 2 or 3 functions. The other way around, we have a number of different functions in English that can be realized in different forms. Take apologizing, for instance. When you want to apologize to someone, how many different ways of apologizing, making an apology, there are? Quite many, I'm really sorry. This is one way of apologizing someone. Then there are more formal ways of showing your apology to someone. Please accept my apologies. And so there are different forms that can be used for this particular function. This is called form-function disjunction, which is quite problematic for the syllabus designers, mainly because it makes decision making really hard about which forms of the language to use and in which form of the language to ignore. Okay, so yes, another example Zainab has given here, which was mentioned in the book, is the cliffs are over there. So this can be both a direction, you're showing someone the direction towards the cliffs, or it can be a warning, beware, cliffs are over there. So you need to beware and take. And Mona says the form-function disjunction makes the process of syllabus design much complex. That is the main problem, and that was why it was criticized. The grammatical syllabus was criticized. And up to some, the acquisition of grammatical structure will be determined by how difficult those items to process psycholinguistically rather than how simple or complex they are grammatically. This is another problem with the selection and grading of the grammatical items. Sometimes one form of the language which you find simple might be linguistically simple for the learners, but the same simple linguistic element might be psycholinguistically complicated and difficult for certain learners, not all learners. The example which was given in the book was related to the simple present tense. Even though this simple present tense seems to be a simple grammatical feature to learn, however, a lot of learners have difficulty understanding or remembering, retaining the information related to the addition of s singular to the two singular verbs in English. So it says that this linguistically looks simple, but psycholinguistically, students need to go through a lot of processes in their head to remember or to justify the use of s singular attached to the end of the verbs for the third singular person. So this was an example that showed grammatical structures that which looks simple on the surface might be psycholinguistically difficult and complex for the learners. Very good, Ebtesam. Thank you.
I reckon.
And Haydar says, for example, it may be suitable to teach verb times explicitly, but a structure such as the use of would in request and active in functional framework instead. Yes, exactly. Would is a very advanced type of grammar. But when you're teaching request, you cannot ignore or you cannot ignore the verb would, the use of would in request. So indeed to pay attention what elements you're choosing, what grammatical elements you're choosing, and in practice it would be really complicated and very, very difficult to choose, because you cannot choose one simple form without relating it to other forms you want to teach in your course, and they sometimes become problematic. Yes, Mona, would you please say what you wanted to say? You raise your hand.
Yes, doctor. This reminds us by the popular sentence by the linguist Noam Chomsky. He said, "Caroline ideas sleep furiously." This sentence is grammatically correct, while is functionally is incorrect semantically.
That's right. Thank you. This is the best example to show that it is not just linguistic knowledge that learners need. Sociolinguistic knowledge, extra linguistic knowledge is also important for learning how languages work. This sentence, colorless ideas, would you please say that again? Colorless ideas?
Colorless green ideas slip furiously.
Slip furiously, yes, exactly. So the sentence is grammatically correct. There's no grammatical error in this sentence, but is it meaningful? Does it make sense? Semantically, the sentence has got a lot of problems. Ideas, sentence, words that are included in this sentence are not relevant, are not related to each other. They do not complete each other to provide a sound meaning of the sentence. So this sentence by Chomsky clearly shows how important it is to, program, plan teaching of the language around, in addition to linguistic knowledge, some linguistic, pragmatic, strategic knowledge, and all types of knowledge that are considered as extra linguistic are also important. Okay, great job. Thank you so much. Yes, Haydar, good. This sentence is grammatically correct. Colorless green ideas sleep furiously is grammatically correct, but it does not express any particular meaning. It is not semantically sound, semantically understandable, meaningful. All right. So that was the two main criticisms made of my syllabus, and some, of course, there were some SLA studies that also in fact, criticize the grammatical syllabus as well. Based on the studies in the second language acquisition, it was found that certain learners, have a natural order. There is a natural order of learning the grammatical structures of the language, regardless of the language you're learning. In all the languages of the world, there is this natural order that students learn about the grammatical features of the language. So they referred to it as the inbuilt syllabus. So they said that if learners have this inbuilt syllabus, then there is no point in selecting the grammatical items in a special order to be included in a syllabus, because learners will definitely, through the process of language learning, will find their own way and will follow this natural order of the learning, or they will follow their inbuilt syllabus rather than the syllabus that we are preparing for them. This was another criticism which was made by SLA studies or SLA theoreticians of the grammatical syllabus. Okay, because of the criticisms leveled against or made of the grammatical syllabuses, they fell out of favor, and another type of syllabus, which was again product oriented in nature, but was an improvement over the grammatical syllabus, emerged. It was called functional notional syllabus. But before we talk about the features of the functional notional syllabus, let's see if you understand the terms functions and notions. What notions refer to?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, function and notion. Yes, doctor. Functions may be described as the communicative purposes for which we use language. Meanwhile, notions are the conceptual meanings such as objects, entities, state of affairs, logical relationships, and so on, expressed through language.
That's right. Very good. So functions are the purposes for which we use the language, the communicative purposes for which we use the language to express ourselves, to convey our meaning. Like when we want to introduce ourselves, introducing is a function. When we want to apologize to someone, here apologizing is a function because it's a purpose for which we are using the language to apologize, to show someone that we are sorry. Or when you're requesting, when you are inviting, you're declining. These are different types of functions, which are the communicative purposes for which we use the language. But notions are those concepts or conceptual meanings which can only be expressed through language. So a lot of times, functions are complemented or completed by the notions. In order to understand some functions, we need some notions to also be included in alongside the functions. Like when you're talking about relationships, relationships, relationship or family or love are notions which can be expressed through the language, and they are closely related to certain functions of the language. When we are learning another language, it would be a good idea to learn about both of these concepts. Yes, so Haydar says notional functional syllabus contains a collection of the functions that are performed when language is used. It includes informing, agreeing, apologizing, requesting, promising, and so on. Anglo-Francis functions may be described as the communicative purposes for which we use language, while notions are the conceptual meanings like objects, entities, states of affairs, logical relationships, and so on, expressed through language. And Haydar, notions of size, age, color, comparison, time, so on and so forth. Exactly. So that is the basis of the functional notional syllabus, and the reason why notions were added to. Initially, it was only functional syllabus that came or emerged after the grammatical syllabus. But later on, they understood that functional syllabus cannot be complete if notions are taken away from it. So they added notions to the functional syllabus and they called it functional notional syllabus. Very good. Let's see the features. What are the features? Or let's talk about, so what is the point of departure? The point of departure in the grammatical syllabus, the starting point was selecting and grading grammatical notions based on their simplicity and complexity. What about the starting point in functional notional syllabus? Where does the syllabus designer start selecting? What things are selected? What is the starting point?
Yes, teacher.
Zainab, go on, please.
The starting point is by selecting items by selecting the item, which items to include, the designer should decide which item to include in the syllabus.
Zainab, yes, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you clearly. There was some noise, so in your voice. But I guess you said that the starting point is selecting functions and notions to be included in the syllabus. That's right. You see, in this sense, it is exactly like a grammatical syllabus, with the difference that in the grammatical syllabus, a list of grammatical items was selected and graded. Here, a list of functions and notions are selected and graded. So again, this is product oriented in nature because not students do not learn about all functions that exist in English, but they tend to, or they are expected to master certain functions that are specified or specifically selected and graded for this course. They need to master them, and at the end of the instruction or at the end of the day, they should show their mastery over these functions. Simply, this is what is expected at the end of the course. Yes. Thank you, Haydar, for mentioning the situational syllabus, because the situational syllabus is also a kind of product-oriented syllabus in which situations or some real or imaginary situations are selected and included in a language lesson or language course to be learned. So here, situations are advantages over functions because they provide wider context. Certain functions are related to certain situations that students might encounter outside the classroom. These are definitely way better than functional notional syllabuses because they are providing some meaningful context in which these functions are used. But the same problem again exists here, and that is, not all situations that students might encounter in real life are included. It's impossible to do so. You cannot include all the situations, all the possible situations that the students might encounter in their real life in your lesson. So they are limited to certain situations which may be useful for some students, while they might not be in the list of the situations that some of the students in the class may encounter or may need to learn about because they have certain needs to perform under such special situations in their later future. Yes, that's right. Thank you so much. Now back to functional notional syllabus. It's are counted for functional notional syllabus. Can you please tell me what those 10 items listed here in the book, which show the advantages or the benefits of functional notional syllabus over the previous syllabus types? I forget because I have told the first group to do these mini projects for our next session. I want to make sure that I won't forget to tell you, to ask you also to do it too. First of all, for the next week, based on the teaching situation parameters that you have described as the first step of your multiple step project, and you're supposed to send it to me by the representative of your groups today. So you should prepare a sample grammatical syllabus for this class that you have described in your first teaching parameter. In your grammatical syllabus, I expect you to at least, you can include more grammatical items if you wish, But what I expect you to do is to include at least 5 grammatical items based on the needs of the learners and show the order in which you will teach them in your syllabus and justify the reasons why you have selected these 5 grammatical features from all the grammatical features available. What is the reason you have done so? So this is one of your tasks that I want you to do. And the second task is related to this functional syllabus, which is 23, I suppose, if I'm not mistaken, that comes after the list of the 10 items or the list of 10 advantages or benefits which are counted for notional functional syllabus. The task wants you to choose 3 of the list mentioned here and express your reasons why you based on these 3 reasons you want to use a functional notional syllabus for your course. If you wanted to choose 3 benefits of the notional functional syllabus from the list here, the 10 item list, which 3 of them would be the main reasons why you use a functional notional syllabus? So you need to again explain and justify yourself for the selection of these 3 items from among the 10 provided in the book. So these are the 2 related mini tasks which you're supposed to complete for our next class. Now let's take a look at this list of 10 items. Can one of you read the book list of here? The first step of your multiple step project, and you're supposed to send it to me by the representative of your groups.